Look at that pitiful excuse for a sentient being, Commander Vrax rumbled, his three secondary eyes focusing on the surveillance feed while his primary set remained fixed on the bridge controls. The humans send us their finest warrior, and this is what we get. A soft, squishy thing that would burst if I so much as sneezed in its direction. The bridge crew of the galactic hegemony warship Inevitable Conquest erupted in laughter. It was the kind of laughter that bounced off the metal walls and reverberated through the command deck, the confident and superior laughter of apex predators who had never known defeat. "Commander, should we be concerned?" Lieutenant Kraz asked, though her mandibles clicked together in what passed for amusement among the Arthak species. "The humans claim she's there. What was the term? Special Forces operative?" Vrax's scaled skin rippled with derision. "Special? Yes, special like a newborn Tralaxian without its protective shell. Look at her. No exoskeleton. No redundant organs. Not even a decent set of claws. Just that pink, soft exterior. What's the point of evolving if you are going to end up looking like something I'd scrape off my boot after walking through the lower decks?" On the screen, the human female sat calmly in the holding cell. The surveillance drone captured her every movement, which frankly wasn't much. She simply sat on the bench, hands folded in her lap, eyes closed. The humans called her Captain Alara Voss. The hegemony called her Leverage. "She hasn't moved in 3 hours," observed Security Officer Droth, his tentacles undulating nervously despite his dismissive tone. "Perhaps their species conserves energy through prolonged stillness? Or perhaps she's simply accepted her fate," Vrax said, rising from his command chair. His impressive 4-meter frame dominated the bridge. "The humans thought they could negotiate with us by sending their diplomat with a military escort. Now the diplomat is dead, and we have their precious soldier. Soon they will give us what we want." "Which is?" asked a junior officer who immediately regretted speaking. Vrax's primary eyes swiveled toward the unfortunate subordinate. "Everything, you simpleton. Their resources, their territory, their complete submission to the hegemony, starting with that ridiculous outpost they have established on Proxima Centauri B." The junior officer shrank back, his bioluminescent patches dimming in fear. "Sir," Lieutenant Kraz interrupted, "the human's vital signs have changed." All eyes turned to the display. Indeed, the bioscanners showed an increased heart rate, though to the observers the human appeared exactly the same. Probably experiencing fear, Vrax concluded with satisfaction. "Good. I will go explain to our guest exactly how this will proceed." As Vrax departed the bridge, Navigation Officer Plex leaned toward Kraz. 10 credits says he makes the human leak bodily fluids in terror. 20 says she begs for mercy within the first minute, Kraz countered. "You are both wrong," Droth interjected, his voice unusually serious. "Something feels off." "Oh?" Plex swiveled his eye stalks. "Has the mighty Droth developed a soft spot for mammals?" Hardly, Droth's tentacles twitched. "But I have studied their conflicts. Humans are unpredictable." "Unpredictable?" Kraz scoffed. "They are as predictable as a Vornian sunspot cycle. Threaten them, they surrender. Hurt them, they die. What's unpredictable about that?" Droth wanted to explain that the historical records painted a different picture, but kept silent. No use arguing with the willfully ignorant. Commander Vrax enjoyed the long walk to the detention level. It gave him time to compose his thoughts, to savor the upcoming interaction. The human representative had been disappointingly easy to kill, a simple matter of exposure to the ship's standard atmosphere, areas which contained trace elements toxic to their fragile systems. An unfortunate oversight in life support calibration, the hegemony would claim. But this Alara Voss, she was supposedly different, enhanced in some way, according to intercepted communications. Vrax was curious but not concerned. Even enhanced humans were laughably weak compared to even the most average hegemony species. The detention-level doors parted with a satisfying hiss. 4 guards stood at attention, their plasma rifles held ready. Status? Vrax demanded. No change, Commander, the lead guard reported. The human remains in a seated position. No attempts at communication or escape. Open the barrier. Keep weapons ready, though I doubt they will be necessary. The energy field separating the corridor from the cell shimmered and disappeared. Vrax stepped through, towering in the doorway, his armored exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh lighting. Captain Alara Voss, he pronounced the alien name with deliberate incorrectness. I am Commander Vrax of the Galactic Hegemony Warship Inevitable Conquest. I trust your accommodations are suitable. The human's eyes opened. They were an unsettling blue-gray, like the skies of Vrax's homeworld before a devastating storm. For a fraction of a second, something primitive within Vrax's genetic memory triggered a warning signal. He dismissed it immediately. The temperature is 3 degrees below human comfort levels, the atmospheric mix is calibrated to induce mild nausea, and the gravitational setting is 14% higher than Earth standard, the human said in a voice that was surprisingly steady. But aside from your obvious attempts at discomfort, yes, it's suitable. Vrax blinked all 4 eyes in sequence, momentarily taken aback by her analysis. You seem well informed for a prisoner. And you seem overconfident for a soon-to-be corpse, she replied with such casual certainty that Vrax actually checked his vital signs display, half expecting to find some hidden ailment. Musing, he recovered quickly. Your species' reliance on humor in desperate situations is well documented. A psychological coping mechanism, I believe? Alara Voss stood up. She was small, ridiculously so, barely reaching the middle of Vrax's torso. Yet she moved with a fluidity that seemed at odds with the fragile construction of human bodies. Do you know what else is well documented, Commander? Your species' inability to accurately assess threats. Vrax laughed, a sound like grinding metal. And what threat would that be, human? You? A soft-skinned creature with no natural weapons, trapped in a cell, surrounded by guards, aboard a warship with 5,000 combat-ready troops? Yes, she said simply. Me. Your confidence is misplaced. Your diplomat is dead. Your ship has been destroyed. Your government will soon receive our demands, along with proof of your capture. If they comply, perhaps we will return you. Eventually. For the first time, a hint of emotion crossed the human's face. You killed Ambassador Morgan. An unfortunate environmental malfunction, Vrax said, not bothering to hide his satisfaction. Your species requires such specific conditions to survive. So, high maintenance. The human took a step forward. The guards outside raised their weapons. That was a mistake, she said quietly. The only mistake was your people thinking they could negotiate with the hegemony as equals, Vrax retorted. Now you will provide us with the defense codes for the Proxima Centauri outpost. No, she said. No? Vrax's secondary eyes blinked in confusion. This wasn't how interrogations usually proceeded. Perhaps I haven't made your situation clear. You are alone. Your communications have been severed. No one knows you are here. You can either cooperate, or we can explore the limits of your species' pain tolerance, which, according to our research, is quite low. The human smiled. Not the fearful grimace Vrax expected, but something predatory that didn't belong on such a seemingly harmless face. Let me make your situation clear, Commander. In approximately 30 seconds, I'm going to leave this cell. Within 5 minutes, your security systems will be compromised. Within 10 minutes, your ship will no longer be under your control. And within 20 minutes, you will be begging me for mercy I won't provide. Vrax stared at the tiny creature before him, then burst into laughter. Record this. The bridge crew will find it most entertaining. Outside the cell, one of the guards activated his comm device. Sir, there seems to be some interference with the... His words cut off as the lights throughout the detention level flickered and died, replaced a moment later by the dim red glow of emergency lighting. What is happening? Vrax demanded, turning toward the door. That would be the 30-second mark, Alara Voss said behind him. right on schedule. When Vrax turned back, the human was no longer seated. She stood directly before him, much closer than she had been a moment ago. Impossible. No species could move that quickly without him noticing. Security breach in detention level 7. Came a frantic voice over the comm. All personnel report. The communication ended in static. What have you done? Vrax demanded, reaching for his sidearm. I haven't done anything yet, Ilara said, her voice dropping to a whisper. But I'm about to start. Vrax drew his weapon, but before he could aim, the human moved. One moment she was standing before him, the next she was simply elsewhere. A sharp pain blossomed in Vrax's primary right arm, and he looked down to see his own weapon missing. Looking for this? The human held his plasma pistol, examining it with apparent curiosity. Interesting design. Biometric trigger, right? Only works for hegemony species. Guards. Vrax bellowed, backing toward the door. No response came. The energy barrier remained down, but the guards were no longer visible in the corridor. Your guards are taking a nap, Ilara informed him, still studying the weapon. Don't worry, they are alive. For now. This is impossible, Vrax said, his voice dropping to a growl. What are you? I told you. Captain Ilara Voss, Human Special Forces. She set the weapon down on the bench, apparently uninterested in it. Though special might be understating things a bit, Vrax lunged forward, his massive arms extending to grab the tiny human. His claws met nothing but air as she sidestepped with that same unnatural speed. The thing about humans, she continued conversationally, as if they were discussing the matter over a meal rather than in the middle of what was rapidly becoming a combat situation, is that we have always been fragile. No claws, no armor, no venom. So we had to get creative. Vrax swung again and again, hit nothing. Frustration and the first real tendrils of fear began to curl around his spine. And when we started exploring space and found out just how many nasty, well-armored species were out there, Ilara continued, now standing near the cell door. Well, we got really creative. You are some kind of genetic experiment, Vrax realized, his tactical mind finally catching up. An abomination. That's rich, coming from a species that deliberately engineers parasitic offspring, Ilara replied. But no, I'm not a genetic experiment. More like a willing participant in technological advancement. A klaxon began blaring throughout the ship, emergency protocols activating. That would be your crew discovering that several key systems are no longer responding, Ilara noted. 5 minutes, as promised. How? Vrax demanded. You have been contained since capture. Scanned for weapons, implants, transmitters. You scanned for what you know to look for, she corrected. Human technology doesn't register on hegemony systems because you have never bothered to understand it. You have always dismissed us as primitive, weak, unworthy of serious study. For the first time, Vrax felt a chill of genuine fear. Not for himself, he was still confident in his physical superiority, but for his ship, his mission. What do you want? He asked, switching tactics. Justice for Ambassador Morgan would be a start, Ilara said, her casual tone finally dropping. He was a good man. A peaceful man. He came here to prevent exactly this kind of conflict. The diplomat's death was regrettable but necessary, Vrax said, trying to sound authoritative while edging toward the door. The hegemony requires the Proxima Centauri system. Your people refuse to vacate. Because it's ours, Ilara said flatly. We discovered it. We terraformed it. We built there. Your hegemony has no claim. We have the claim of superior strength, Vrax countered. Ilara's laugh was cold. Do you? Let's test that theory. She moved again, and this time Vrax was prepared. He tracked her blur of motion and struck out with his secondary arms, catching her a glancing blow that should have shattered bones. Instead, he felt as if he'd struck reinforced metal. Ilara rolled with the impact, coming up in a fighting stance that Vrax didn't recognize from any known combat style. My turn, she said. What happened next would be studied in hegemony military academies for generations, though most would dismiss it as exaggeration or propaganda. The human moved not just with speed, but with a precision that suggested she could perceive time itself differently. She struck points on Vrax's exoskeleton that he didn't even know were vulnerable. Joints, nerve clusters, sensory nodes. Pain blossomed across Vrax's consciousness as system after system in his body reported damage. He fought back with the desperation of a cornered predator, but his claws found only empty air or, worse, they connected with surfaces that should have yielded but instead jarred his limbs with painful feedback. "What? Are you?" he gasped as they separated after another exchange that left him further damaged and her seemingly untouched. "I told you. Human, just not quite the kind you are familiar with." Elara flexed her fingers and Vrax noticed for the first time the faint shimmer across her skin, some kind of technology so seamlessly integrated it appeared almost organic. "The hegemony has encountered augmented species before," Vrax said, trying to sound confident despite the warnings flashing across his neural interface. "We have defeated them all." "You have never encountered humans before," Elara corrected. "Not really. Those colony ships you have been picking off? Civilian vessels. Those outposts you have been raiding? Scientific installations. You have never faced our military. Our real military. Your species is confined to a single star system," Vrax said. "The hegemony spans hundreds." "For now," Elara agreed. "But quality over quantity, Commander. While you have been expanding, we have been perfecting." The ship lurched suddenly, artificial gravity fluctuating. Vrax stumbled, while Elara remained perfectly balanced. 10 minutes, she noted. "Your ship is now under my control." "Impossible. Our systems are quantum encrypted." She corrected. "The nanites I released during our conversation have been quite busy." "Nanites?" Vrax looked around wildly, as if he could see microscopic machines. "Among other things," Elara said with a shrug. "Now, shall we discuss terms of surrender, or would you prefer I continue dismantling your ship with you inside it?" Commander Vrax of the Galactic Hegemony Warship, Inevitable Conquest, veteran of 17 planetary subjugations and conqueror of 3 sentient species, he felt something he had never experienced before: utter helplessness. "The hegemony does not surrender," he said, though his voice lacked conviction. "That policy might need revision," Elara suggested. "Especially once they hear what happened to their most advanced warship." The ship's internal communications suddenly activated, broadcasting throughout every deck. "Attention, hegemony vessel," came Elara's voice, though she hadn't spoken. "This is Captain Elara Voss of Earth Special Forces. Your ship is now under my control. Your commander has failed to protect you. You have 15 minutes to evacuate before this vessel self-destructs. Escape pods are now unlocked and prepped for launch. This is not a drill." "How are you doing that?" Vrax demanded. "Quantum entanglement communication," Elara said, as if explaining something to a child. "My body is the transmitter. The ship's systems are now the receiver." "Handy, isn't it?" Alarms blared louder. Through the open cell door, Vrax could hear the sounds of panicked crew members running toward escape pods. "You are bluffing," Vrax said, though he was no longer certain. "You can't destroy this ship from inside a cell." "Would you like to bet your life on that assumption?" Elara asked, head tilted in what appeared to be genuine curiosity. "Because I have already initiated the reactor overload sequence. In approximately 13 minutes and 40 seconds, this ship will be nothing but scattered atoms." Vrax lunged one final time, putting all his remaining strength into a desperate attack. His claws extended for the human's throat. This time she didn't dodge. Instead, her hand shot up with impossible speed, catching his arm just below the joint. Her grip was like industrial hydraulics, immovable and crushing. "That," she said quietly, "was your last mistake." The sound of Vrax's exoskeleton cracking echoed in the small cell, followed by his scream of pain and disbelief. "Now, Ilara Voss said, releasing his shattered limb. Let's go to the bridge. You are going to help me send a message to your hegemony leadership. A message about what happens when you underestimate humans. As she marched the broken commander out of the detention level and through corridors filled with fleeing crew members, Ilara reflected that perhaps this demonstration would be sufficient. Perhaps the hegemony would reconsider their expansion plans after today. But as she caught sight of Ambassador Morgan's personal effects being carried by a fleeing officer, the evidence of a good man's life cut short by arrogance and cruelty, and she knew this was only the beginning. The hegemony had mocked her fragile human body. Now they would learn just how costly that mistake would be. Alarms wailed throughout the inevitable conquest as Captain Ilara Voss marched Commander Vrax through the corridors of his own ship. Crew members scattered at the sight of them, their towering commander, one arm hanging uselessly at his side, being directed by a human female barely half his size. "Tell your security teams to stand down," Ilara said, her voice calm despite the chaos surrounding them. "Unless you want me to demonstrate what happens when I encounter resistance." Vrax, pride shattered along with his exoskeleton, growled into his communicator. "All personnel, this is Commander Vrax. Do not engage the human. Repeat, do not engage." Wise decision, Ilara noted as they entered a transport tube. "Bridge level," she commanded, and the ship's systems obeyed her as if she were its rightful captain. "How are you controlling my ship?" Vrax demanded, nursing his shattered arm. "No human technology could interface with our systems so completely." "You keep thinking of human technology as separate devices," Ilara replied as the transport accelerated. "Crude tools held in fragile hands. What you fail to understand is that I am the technology." The transport doors opened directly onto the bridge, where a skeleton crew remained at their stations, mandibles clicking nervously as their commander entered under obvious duress. Lieutenant Kraz rose from the command chair, her forearms reaching instinctively for weapons that had already been secured in lockdown protocols. "Commander, what is the meaning of this?" "The evacuation order is legitimate," Vrax interrupted. "The human has seized control of the ship." "Impossible." "Security officer," Droth exclaimed, his tentacles writhing in agitation. "One human against a hegemony warship?" "One was all it took," Ilara said, stepping onto the bridge. "You can thank your arrogance for that. You were so convinced of your superiority that you never bothered to develop countermeasures against technologies you deemed primitive." "Our scans showed no weapons, no transmitters, no implants," Kraz protested. "Your scans showed exactly what I wanted them to show," Ilara corrected. "Now, all of you, step away from your stations. The consoles won't respond to you anyway." As if to demonstrate, the bridge lighting shifted from emergency red to a calmer blue. On the main view screen, a countdown appeared: 11:42, 11:41, 11:40. "That's how long you have until this ship's reactor goes critical," Ilara explained unnecessarily. "Plenty of time for the escape pods to reach safe distance. Unless anyone feels like testing my patience." Droth, surprisingly, was the first to speak. "I told you," he said to no one in particular. "I told you humans were unpredictable." "Shut up," Droth, Kraz snapped. "Actually," Ilara interjected, "you should have listened to him." "Officer Droth, was it? You studied our conflicts?" The security officer's tentacles twisted in what might have been embarrassment. "I reviewed historical data on human warfare. There were patterns that concerned me, such as..." Ilara prompted, genuinely curious despite the circumstances. "Your species adapts faster than any other known civilization," Droth said quietly. "Not just technologically, but tactically. You learn from every defeat. And you never, ever stop." "Finally," Ilara said with a small smile, "someone who's been paying attention." She gestured to the command chair. "Commander Vrax, take a seat. We are going to have a conversation with your superiors." Vrax hesitated, his pride warring with survival instinct. The latter won. "The hegemony Supreme Command will not negotiate with..." "They will," Ilara cut him off. "Because I'm not asking for their surrender. I'm offering them a chance to avoid extinction. The bridge crew froze, their various appendages and sensory organs registering shock in species-specific ways. The claim seemed so outrageous that several actually emitted the hegemony equivalent of laughter. Extinction? Plex, the navigation officer, scoffed. From a species confined to a single star system? Your hubris exceeds even your technological prowess, human. Ilara ignored him, focusing instead on the main communications console, which lit up under her gaze. Open a channel to Hegemony Supreme Command. Priority Alpha. Authentication code Vrax Omega 73. How do you know my emergency codes? Vrax demanded. I know everything that was in your ship's database, Ilara replied, including the location of every hegemony world, outpost, and fleet. She tapped her temple. All up here now, permanently. The view screen flickered, the countdown temporarily replaced by a communications interface. After several tense moments, the stern visage of a being even larger and more heavily armored than Vrax appeared on screen. 6 eyes blinked in sequence, and a voice like grinding stone emerged. Commander Vrax. Explain why you have initiated emergency protocols and evacuation procedures. Supreme Commander Zoltak, Vrax began, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. The human prisoner has compromised ship systems. Zoltak's massive head tilted slightly. A single human has compromised a hegemony warship? Perhaps you are unfit for command, Vrax. With respect, Supreme Commander, Ilara interrupted, stepping into view. The failure is not Vrax's alone, but rather a fundamental flaw in hegemony's strategic assessment. The Supreme Commander's eyes narrowed. And you would be the human captive. How unusual to find prey addressing predators with such confidence. That's your first mistake, Ilara said, assuming the predator-prey relationship. Let me demonstrate why that's an error. She raised her hand, and the view screen split to show multiple feeds, hegemony ships, outposts, and even several planetary defense installations. Red warning indicators flashed across each image. What is this? Zoltak demanded. A sampling of hegemony military assets that are currently experiencing technical difficulties, Ilara explained. Similar to the ones affecting the inevitable conquest. Impossible, Zoltak growled. Our systems are isolated, quantum encrypted. You cannot possibly have access. Yet here we are, Ilara shrugged. The nanites I released on this ship have been busy replicating and transmitting. Quite fascinating how your ship's recycling systems make excellent breeding grounds for microscopic machines. Every vessel that's docked with the inevitable conquest in the past week is now compromised. And they have. We've been spreading the infection exponentially. Vrax's mandibles clicked in horror. From the diplomatic exchange at Outpost Gamma. We rendezvoused with half the fleet. Precisely, Ilara nodded. I could trigger self-destruct sequences in 87% of your active warships right now, but that would be wasteful. For the first time, genuine concern crossed Zoltak's alien features. What do you want, human? Justice. Initially, Ilara said. Ambassador Morgan came to prevent conflict. His death will not go unanswered. The diplomat's death was regrettable. Zoltak began, adopting a conciliatory tone that sat unnaturally on his predatory features. Save it, Ilara cut him off. I know exactly how the hegemony operates. You have expanded through intimidation and force for 3 centuries. You have subjugated 17 species and exterminated 4 that resisted. You assumed humans would be the 5th. Your species is confined to 1 system, Zoltak said, repeating the hegemony's standard assessment. You have no significant fleet, no military presence beyond your immediate planetary neighborhood. By design, Ilara countered. We have been watching you. Learning, preparing. She gestured, and the view screen changed again, now showing what appeared to be some kind of medical or scientific facility. Hundreds of humans moved through the space, many bearing the same subtle technological enhancements as Ilara herself. This is Titan Base, she explained. one of 37 advanced research and development facilities dedicated to creating people like me, humans enhanced beyond anything your scientists have conceived. The Supreme Commander's expression remained impassive, but his secondary eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of intense calculation. One of you took over my most advanced warship, he acknowledged. Impressive, but hardly a threat to the hegemony as a whole. You misunderstand, Ilara said. I'm not a special case. I'm the prototype, the first generation. There are thousands more like me now and tens of thousands in development, each generation more advanced than the last. She stepped closer to the screen, her augmented blue-gray eyes seeming to stare directly into Zoltak's soul. While you have been building bigger ships and more powerful weapons, we have been evolving, transcending our biological limitations, becoming something new. The countdown on the adjacent screen continued its remorseless progress, 7:13, 7:12, 7:11. Here are my terms, Ilara continued. First, immediate withdrawal from the Proxima Centauri system and recognition of human sovereignty there. Zoltak's massive head inclined slightly, not quite agreement, but acknowledgement. Second, reparations for Ambassador Morgan's murder and the destruction of our diplomatic vessel. A low growl emanated from the Supreme Commander, but he did not object. Third, and most importantly, Ilara's voice hardened, the hegemony will cease all expansion activities directed toward human space or our allies. Permanently. At this, Zoltak could no longer contain himself. Preposterous. The hegemony has expanded for 300 cycles. It is our right, our biological imperative. Your biological imperative is about to run headlong into human determination, Ilara replied evenly. And I promise you, Supreme Commander, that's a collision you won't survive. She gestured again, and the view screen changed once more. This time it showed what appeared to be empty space, until the magnification increased to reveal thousands, perhaps millions, of tiny objects moving in precise formation. What am I looking at? Zoltak demanded. The future, Ilara said simply. Each of those objects is a self-replicating autonomous weapons platform, smaller than your sensors can detect, faster than your ships can track, and capable of disabling any hegemony vessel without destroying it. You are bluffing, Zoltak said, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. Am I? Ilara raised an eyebrow. Would you like a demonstration? Perhaps on your flagship? Silence fell over both bridges, the inevitable conquest and, presumably, Zoltak's command vessel light years away. You said without destroying, Vrax noted from his command chair, speaking for the first time in several minutes. You could have destroyed us, but you chose not to. Unlike the hegemony, humans prefer not to exterminate other sentient species, Ilara said, even ones that have given us ample provocation. She turned back to the view screen. You have two options, Supreme Commander. Either accept my terms and live with the knowledge that your expansion ends at human space, or reject them and face a war unlike any the hegemony has ever encountered. You cannot possibly, Zoltak began. 4 minutes, 23 seconds until this ship self-destructs, Ilara interrupted. Make your decision. The bridge of the inevitable conquest fell silent, save for the soft beeping of the countdown. The remaining crew members looked from their broken commander to the small human female who had single-handedly brought the mighty hegemony to the negotiating table. The terms, Zoltak finally said, his voice like gravel, are acceptable. Ilara nodded. Wise choice. Formal treaties will be drafted within the week. In the meantime, all hegemony forces will withdraw from Proxima Centauri immediately. And the nanite infestation in our fleet? Zoltak demanded. Will remain dormant unless activated, Ilara said. Consider it our insurance policy. She turned to Vrax. Commander, complete the evacuation of your ship. I'm extending the self-destruct countdown by 30 minutes to ensure all personnel reach minimum safe distance. Vrax's primary eyes narrowed. You are actually going through with the destruction, even after securing our agreement? The inevitable conquest killed Ambassador Morgan, Ilara said simply. There must be consequences. Besides, the technological advances contained in this vessel are too dangerous to risk falling into hegemony hands again. And what of us? Lieutenant Kraz asked, gesturing to the bridge crew. You are free to leave, Ilara said. Take the remaining escape pods. But know this, if the hegemony violates our agreement, every ship, every outpost, every military installation will face far worse than what happened here today. As the bridge crew filed toward the exit, Security Officer Droth lingered behind. You knew, he said quietly, when you allowed yourself to be captured. This was your plan all along. Ilara's expression softened slightly. Not exactly. The plan was for Ambassador Morgan to negotiate a peaceful agreement. His death necessitated alternative measures. We never stood a chance, did we? Droth asked. Against one enhanced human? No. Ilara's gaze was steady. Against what's coming if the hegemony continues down this path? Definitely not. Droth's tentacles twisted in what might have been resignation. For what it's worth, I argued against the aggressive expansion policy. Not all of us support Zoltak's vision. Then perhaps you should be the one to ensure the Supreme Commander honors our agreement, Ilara suggested. For the sake of both our peoples. With a final look at the human who had changed the course of hegemony history, Droth departed the bridge. Alone now, Ilara moved to the command chair and interfaced directly with the ship's systems. The countdown clock adjusted as promised, and she began the process of extracting all relevant data from the vessel's databases. Captain Voss to Titan Base, she subvocalized, activating her quantum entanglement communicator. Mission accomplished. Target neutralized. Treaty secured. Confirmed, Captain, came the reply, audible only to her enhanced senses. Extraction team is en route. ETA 19 minutes. Cutting it close with that self-destruct. I will be clear before detonation, she assured them. Sending tactical data now. The hegemony's technological capabilities are less impressive than intelligence suggested. That's good news. And Ambassador Morgan? Ilara's expression hardened. Confirmed deceased. Deliberate environmental poisoning disguised as a malfunction. A moment of silence across the quantum link. Understood. The President will want a full debrief. This changes our diplomatic approach. Recommend maintaining enhanced readiness, Ilara said, reviewing the data she'd extracted. The hegemony agreed under duress. Their compliance history with other species suggests a 28% probability of violation within the first standard year, noted. What's your assessment of their leadership? Ilara considered the question. Overconfident. Biologically predisposed to aggression. But not suicidal. They will honor the agreement as long as they believe we can enforce it. And can we? They believe we can, Ilara said with a small smile. Sometimes perception is more important than reality. She rose from the command chair as the ship's internal sensors detected the last escape pod launching. Final pod away. Beginning final system purge. Walking through the empty corridors of the massive warship, Ilara reflected on the events that had led to this moment. The hegemony had dismissed humans as weak, fragile creatures unworthy of respect or consideration. They had mockingly compared her soft exterior to their armored bodies, their natural weapons to her seemingly defenseless form. They had failed to understand the fundamental truth about humanity. Their very fragility had driven them to become something more. Without natural armor, they had created better protection. Without claws or fangs, they had fashioned more powerful weapons. Without biological advantages, they had transcended biology itself. As she reached the ship's auxiliary hangar and the small stealth craft that had been hidden there since before her capture, Ilara felt a moment of genuine sadness for Ambassador Morgan. He had truly believed peaceful coexistence was possible. Perhaps, in time, it would be, but not before the hegemony learned a harsh lesson about underestimating those they perceived as weak. The stealth craft systems activated at her approach, canopy opening silently. Extraction complete, she reported as she settled into the pilot's seat. Departing inevitable conquest. Detonation in 14 minutes. 12 seconds. The small craft slipped from the hangar, its advanced stealth systems rendering it invisible to the conventional sensors of the hegemony escape pods scattered across nearby space. As she accelerated away from the doomed warship, Alara opened a general broadcast channel. "Attention, hegemony survivors," she transmitted. "This is Captain Alara Voss. Remember this day. Remember what one human was capable of. And remember that there are thousands more like me, watching and waiting." She paused, then added, "Ambassador Morgan believed our species could coexist peacefully. I hope he was right, for all our sakes." Switching off the broadcast, she set course for the rendezvous point, where an Earth vessel waited in stealth mode. Behind her, the massive form of the inevitable conquest grew smaller against the backdrop of stars. In exactly 14 minutes, that mighty warship would be reduced to its component atoms, a fitting end for a vessel whose commanders had been so certain of their superiority, so dismissive of the fragile humans they sought to subjugate. Perhaps in the destruction of the inevitable conquest, the hegemony would find wisdom. Perhaps they would learn that true strength is not measured by the hardness of one's exterior, but by the adaptability of one's mind and the determination of one's spirit. And if they didn't learn that lesson, well, humanity would be ready. After all, they had been underestimated before, and those who had made that mistake rarely lived long enough to make it twice. As her small craft accelerated to superluminal velocities, Alara allowed herself a satisfied smile. Behind her, right on schedule, a new star briefly flared into existence where the inevitable conquest had been, a warning beacon to all who might think humans easy prey. The message was clear: mock our fragile bodies at your peril. For within those bodies dwell minds that will tear through your warships, shatter your fleets, and bring your empires to their knees. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and the galaxy would never be the same.